Many of you guys probably got to the end of the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer and thought to yourself, oh cool, Jake Gyllenhaal's in this movie. But it was pretty unclear to casual fans who he's playing in the film. Then he started doing all sorts of really weird tricks, like flying around and shooting laser beams from his hand, all the while telling Peter Parker, you don't want any part of this.
You don't want any part of this.
See, I told you. And I haven't even mentioned that fishbowl helmet that he has on himself while he's flying around. So trust me, all of this makes sense. Jake Gyllenhaal is playing Mysterio in Spider-Man Far From Home, and I'm going to tell you why that's super important. But before we do that, do me a huge solid, hit that subscribe button down below. It makes me feel all special and stuff. Mysterio is actually one of Spider-Man's oldest villains. He was introduced in issue number 13 all the way back in June of 1964. In the comics, Mysterio, otherwise known as Quentin Beck, is a special effects artist who's trying to make it big in show business. He fails, naturally, so then he ends up using his powers of illusion to create really elaborate crimes. Over the years, Mysterio really messes with Spider-Man's head. He uses his illusions to often make him believe really illogical stuff, almost leading Spider-Man to believe multiple times that he's going insane. That's Mysterio in the comics, but by the time we see him in the movies, he's going to be totally different. Right off the bat, we can tell from the trailer that Mysterio is going to be a protagonist of Peter Parker in this new movie, Spider-Man Far From Home. We have learned that Mysterio will be hired by Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., or some version of S.H.I.E.L.D. that exists now, to combat these elementals, giant creatures that form in different cities around the world. In the trailer, we see them fighting a water creature, a sand creature, and a really brief snippet of them fighting a fire creature. We've learned that Mysterio is going to be an expert on these elementals, and when Nick Fury recruits Spider-Man to fight against the elementals in Europe, he's actually going to be paired with Mysterio, so they will be partners, not antagonists. Let's talk briefly about why this matters to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general. So far, Marvel Studios has kind of hesitated to bring the Osborn family into these new Spider-Man films. We haven't seen Norman and Harry, even though they are super important to the development of Peter Parker as a character. I think that the introduction of Mysterio and Quentin Beck and casting Jake Gyllenhaal in that part is setting him up to almost be a Norman Osborn type mentor for Peter. It's also worth noting that Mysterio has never been seen on the big screen before, so Spider-Man fans are getting really excited to see a villain who's making his big screen debut. The Marvel Studios Spider-Man movies have kind of gone out of their way to avoid using villains that showed up in previous Sony Spider-Man films, which is why we had Vulture in Homecoming and why Mysterio is going to be the main character that we see. I want to call him a villain because I don't think he's necessarily a villain, but the main character fighting alongside Spider-Man in Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home is actually going to be the third Marvel Studios film on the calendar this year after Captain Marvel and the massive Avengers Endgame. It opens in theaters on July 5th, so while we're waiting for that film to open, kill some time by hitting the subscribe button down below. It guarantees that you stay up to date on all of the Marvel Studios videos that we make here at CinemaBlend.